Sonic and the Black Knight is a game where you play as Sonic with a sword. And it is absolute big. Then I played it. All of it. There are 87 missions in Black Knight, with 27 of them being required to see the credits. The other 60 are side missions that range from acts of charity to avoiding vehicular manslaughter. Let's just go through the story missions first, shall we? Sonic is summoned by a witch named Merlina. And is immediately burdened with the task of defeating King Arthur. Merlina then brings us to the Misty Lake, where we can get to feel the controls, and they are not good. Merlina then sends us off to retrieve the sacred sword Caliburn, as it is the only thing that can stand up to King Arthur's power. After a bit more tutorial, Merlina throws a friggin' dragon at us as a test. It's actually a very easy fight, and we quickly move on. We finally reach the sword. It calls us a fool. And then King Arthur just kind of shows up. I guess he was just waiting for us or something. We fight King Arthur, question if this is even worth it, then obliterate him. But due to the immortality granted to him by the scabbard of Excalibur, he just kind of gets up and runs away. To continue our quest, we are tasked with seeking out the Lady of the Lake Nimue, but not before we fix up Caliburn at the blacksmith. Sonic makes a Smash Mouth reference.
Ha! Not the sharpest tool in the shed, huh?
Merlina spouts some foreshadowing.
Why do flowers bloom, knowing they are destined to wither?
And it's off to Camelot we go.
Yes, may your journey be safe.
Now is the time we finally get some actual stages to play around in, as up till now we've just been slashing at targets and getting hit by boars. As we make our way through the castle, we must cut through the underworld forces, and we reach the smithy where Tails,
The blacksmith,
sharpens up Caliburn. We resume our search for the Lady of the Lake through the deep woods, where we are suddenly ambushed by a Knight of the Round Table, Shadow.
Lancelot.
We beat him up, steal a sword for some reason,
Oh, what's the big deal? Besides, I got this, didn't I?
then go for a little stroll through the forest until we meet the Lady of the Lake,
Nimue.
We do some light flirting. Sonic is weirdly aggressive,
Still what?
and Nimue gives us 3 tasks. Free King Arthur's prisoners, be nice to someone, and kill the Underworld army. One of those is not quite like the others, but regardless, we accept and make our way forward. After freeing the prisoners, defeating some Underworld minions, and giving money to homeless people, we find a little girl who is definitely not Amy's voice actor, crying in the middle of the road. She tells us that a dragon attacked her village, stole everybody, and is keeping them in a cave. We do have a time limit on when we have to get back to Nimue, but since we're just such an upstanding guy, we leave to save the villagers.
Hang in there, kiddo. I'll get your folks back.
Just like before, we are intercepted by a Knight of the Round Table, Knuckles.
Gawain.
He calls us a hoe and tries to assault us. After utterly clowning him, he threatens suicide,
Only death can remove this stain upon my honor.
throws a tantrum.
Silence! Silence, I say!
We tell him to grow a pair
Isn't there more to being a knight than just serving a king?
and leave him to reevaluate his life choices.
I'm out of here. People to save, you know.
We finally reach the Crystal Cave, break out all the townspeople, and race back to Nimue, and finally become a knight. The girl, who's apparently been waiting in the same place this whole time, reveals herself as Nimue. Oh man, who could have seen this coming? She deems us a true knight and tells us in order to stop King Arthur, we must use the power of the 3 sacred swords wielded by the Knights of the Round Table and Caliburn. Luckily, we've already got 2 since Sonic's apparently a klepto. Now, all that's left is to seek out Blade,
Percival.
and retrieve the final sacred sword. After running through the hellscape that is the Molten Mine, we reach Percival and challenge her to a duel backed by one of the best songs in the OST. Seriously, you have to listen to it, even though it's like 40 seconds long. But still, the guitar is amazing. Through a use of a little baiting, we gained victory over her, and I was surprised how easily this strategy worked. I've been mindlessly running into her my entire life before this moment. Percival then falls off a cliff.
Percival!
We do some light flirting,
Save the hugs and kisses for later.
and Caliburn finally recognizes us as
Sir Sonic, Knight of the Wind.
And then we link back up with Merlina, who has been watching us from afar. Merlina sends us off to Avalon to face King Arthur as we finally have all we need to defeat him. We challenge King Arthur to a duel. I die a couple times, question if this is even worth it, then obliterate him. We use the sacred swords to dispel his immortality and deal the final blow. Sonic pops off,
Yes! I did it!
and then the game just kinda ends. But oh, don't you worry, Buster. There's still the whole second half of the game we have to play. We load up our adventure and are placed right where the last cutscene ended off. King Arthur disappears. We go, hey, that's weird, and run back to Merlina in Castle Camelot. We hand Merlina the scabbard, and in a twist that absolutely no one could possibly see coming, she uses the power of the scabbard to create her eternal kingdom.
I shall make this kingdom eternal.
By destroying everything, I guess. We are then treated to a nice cutscene I replayed over and over in the gallery of Sonic and the Knights of the Round Table, running away as the castle passages crumble around them. It is now that we are first able to play as Lancelot, Gawain, and Percival. Do not use them, please. I am begging you. Oh my god, you are saving yourself if you do not use them. Just use Sonic. There's absolutely no reason to use anybody but Sonic in this game. Please don't do it. You could use Lancelot, but he's just a slower, clunkier, worse version of Sonic, so there's absolutely no reason to use him. Yeah. Everyone whines in a circle.
The Knights of the Round Table. Must we simply stand and watch our kingdom's ruin?
Well, Sonic tells them to grow a pair.
Listen, it's like I said before. Isn't there more to being a knight than serving a king?
And Nimue shows up to tell them that if they place their sacred swords in these stones in the four corners of the realm, they can form a barrier that will diminish Merlina's power. Oh, yay. You then get 3 new stages opened up to you where you can use the Knights of the Round Table to reach the barrier stones. But as mentioned before, do not use them. Oh my god, they are so bad. Except for Lancelot. But just don't use him still. I don't know what they were cooking when they made these characters, but like they don't even work half the time. And while Sonic has been like sort of clunky and some of the inputs may not register, these guys just do whatever the hell they want. Even the slightest nudge of the Wii remote will make them attack, which is terrible, especially during these stupid wall climbing sections with Percival and Gawain. They also just have a worse moveset than Sonic in general. They're supposed to mirror the different styles that Sonic can unlock, but they just make the game even slower, whether it be them having to completely halt all momentum to attack or having no way to quickly slice through enemies like Sonic can. Even Lancelot has his issues. I could swing the Wii remote once and he would just do a full combo for some reason. I also had this really weird issue with Lancelot where he would just continuously attack on any on-rail section. Like when you're on the boat or in that rock floating in lava. And I would just swing the remote once and then he would just keep going. Anyway, Sonic kills a dragon, places Caliburn in the final barrier stone, and completes the seal on Merlina's power. But it doesn't work. Like even a little bit. Sonic's like, whatever, we'll do it live. Then confronts Merlina, who found a bottle of hair dye, apparently. Sonic throws a little tantrum.
Do you not understand?
No, and I don't want to.
Caliburn is shattered.
Fool! Knight must always be on his guard.
And this is where child me had to turn off the Wii because Sonic started getting hurt, and it was too scary.
You fool!
Sonic shows off how cool he is.
It was never about chivalry for me. I just gotta do what I've gotta do. That's all.
Turns into Excalibur Sonic, another scene which I constantly rewatched in the gallery.
Let's do this.
And then stabs Merlina through the heart.
There's nothing Excalibur can't cut through.
Giving her a little thumbs up on the way out. Man, he is so cool. The world then returns to normal. Sonic tells Merlina, as well as all the kids, that one day we will all die, but he never will.
Merlina, every world has its end. I know that's kind of sad, but That's why we gotta live life to the fullest in the time we have. At least, that's what I figure.
Then becomes the one true King Arthur, and then the credits roll for real this time.
You? You are the one and true King Arthur?
Who? Me? Huh? Hey, cut that out!
Now, this is where a sane person would then say, this game was kind of bad, then turn it off. But not I. For reasons I can only describe as self-loathing, I had to go and complete every other mission available in the game, but not before I played every story mission I could with every Knight of the Round Table and Sonic. You see, during these missions, they all have different lines they say throughout the level, but don't waste your time doing this, please. They basically just say the same line in a different way. The most interesting thing they talked about was something about rats. Anyway, let's get to the actual side missions. There are 19 different categories of missions to play that range from not too bad to I am going to throw my Wii across the room. They're simple go for the goal missions. Ring giver missions where you have to donate a certain amount of rings before reaching the goal. Rampage, total rampage, and ultimate missions where you have to defeat enemies. Hide and seek where you have to collect hidden fairies throughout the stage. Mastery stages where you can only swing your sword a certain amount of times. Missions where you have to collect rings. Missions where you have to reach checkpoints in a certain amount of time. Don't run into people, keep your hit count up. Legacy stages, which are the best ones, and a handful of one-offs. The goal for the goal missions are actually pretty fun. While in the main story, you have these specific missions you need to complete which keep you locked into a certain area of the level, these missions have you running throughout the entire stage from beginning to end, which is pretty neat. The only stage I had trouble on was in the Misty Lake, where these blue energy balls block your way and will hurt you if you touch them. I found that sometimes if you hit them with a Soul Surge, you won't take damage, but that wasn't always true, and I found myself still stuck. Desperate and with no idea how to progress, I made a quick Google search and found that if you shake the nunchuck while in Soul Surge, you'll perform a kick that can send the energy balls flying without taking damage. Why? How was I ever supposed to figure that out on my own? Not once is it something that you have to do during the main story, and it serves no purpose other than letting you attack these things. It doesn't even deal damage to enemies. Not that it matters, because if you just use Soul Surge normally, you'll be perfectly fine. Anyway, the stage was fine after that, moving on. The Ring Giver missions are incredibly simple. Just collect the rings, complete a little quick time event with these little villagers till you reach the number of rings you have to give, then roll into the goal. The Rampage, Total Rampage, and Ultimate missions are basically the same mission with a little more spice depending on what you play. In the Rampage missions, you have to defeat a certain amount of enemies before reaching the goal. Easy. In Total Rampage, you are timed and you have to defeat as many enemies as you can, although I'm pretty sure if you just kill one enemy, you can still win. Now, the Ultimate challenges sound like they would be the most difficult, as you have to defeat enemies without getting hit, but since there isn't a certain amount of enemies you have to defeat, you can really just kill one enemy, get hit, and stage cleared. Great game design. Hide and seek is pretty self-explanatory, albeit quite trivial. You have to find a certain amount of hidden fairies before reaching the goal. For the mastery stages, you only have a certain amount of times you can swing your sword. Again, only use Sonic unless you hate yourself, which I apparently do for some reason, because I still use Lancelot. Do not use Lancelot. These ones aren't too bad, but you could probably have more fun watching the grass grow. There are two sorts of missions where you have to collect rings. The first is just simply collect a certain amount of rings before reaching the goal, and the second is one where you have to collect a certain amount of rings in an unbroken chain. These suck! You only get the most minuscule amount of times to collect sometimes an absurd amount of rings, which with how poorly Sonic handles sometimes, this can be incredibly difficult to manage. In Faraway Avalon, you have to collect 350 rings in a single chain. Then halfway through the stage, there's this big enemy that takes 3 hits to defeat, so naturally, you try to run past him in order to keep your chain up. But nope, this guy will grab you if you try to do that, and you have no other option than watch your chain gauge go down and restart the level. Out of desperation and anger, I finally tried attacking the guy, and guess what? The gauge was replenished! Why? How was I supposed to figure out that attacking enemies kept the ring gauge up, if not out of pure frustration? Moving on! The missions where you have to reach the checkpoints aren't terrible, but Molten Mine is. I just hate this place so much. You have to grind rails that lead to death pits that are hard to see due to the angle of the camera, running uphill while molten rocks roll towards you, and these stupid, boring ledge shuffling sections that just make the timer run. Granted, you can skip past these if you have enough soul gauge, but it's still pretty annoying, and I just like complaining. The rush hour missions aren't entirely bad, but the villagers don't show up until you get pretty close to them, so you might just run into them before you even saw them coming. And sometimes these stupid underworld guys will pop out of nowhere, causing the villagers to scatter, which makes them run into you with very little time to react. On a second run through, you're not quite as caught off guard. It can still get you pretty heated, especially if you've been playing this game for hours. Which I have been. I want to stop, please. The missions where you had to keep your hit count up weren't too difficult, so there's not much to say about them. However, the legacy missions were awesome. They felt like a nice little victory lap where all you have to worry about is reaching the goal and using the homing attack on these flying egg pawn guys. Except for the cauldron. The cauldron takes everything I love, and I hate it so much. Now for the one-offs, I'll just do a quick run-through of them. Grind challenge. It's incredibly frustrating. Just know that if you sit on the left rail and block the carts coming at you, you'll just be moved to the right rail without having to worry about jumping over them and potentially getting hit. Although sometimes it doesn't like to work. Die Hard challenge. Reach the goal without dying. Thanks. That was the plan anyway. Beat the clock. Just get to the end before the time runs out. Escape the cauldron. Even the game knows how much we don't want to be here. Don't touch the ground. It's actually probably better to use Gawain here as he can glide, which keeps you off the ground longer. It can still be really annoying though. Defeat 10 will-o-wisps. Just remember the nunchuck plus soul search thing. Destroy 12 columns. Why is this a thing? Open all the locks. Make sure you found everyone before going forward. There are points of no return. Put out 10 fires. Now we just have one last mission to complete. Lancelot returns. This took me an hour. Well, yes, it was frustrating at points. It was actually also pretty fun learning his pattern and figuring out when to strike. My first strategy was just to bait out his chaos spears so I can block and build up the soul gauge. However, this is very time consuming, and once he reached his second phase where he shoots at a bunch of you at once, it made it hard to counter. My next strategy was a desperate attack until he dies. It didn't work. Then once I got the hang of when his Chaos Blast field dropped so I can home in on him, it was just a matter of practice. He also has this clash mechanic that can be very annoying to figure out. But basically, what you want to do is keep your controller waggling controlled and short. Don't go wild with it and get yourself hit. What I did for the fight was block until I had enough soul gauge to attack, hit him 3 times, you'll then fly back, and that's when you want to run at him and use the jumping buzzsaw attack. Then you'll proceed to get up, and that's when you want to block. Rinse and repeat. This isn't foolproof, however, so make sure to stay on your toes and adapt while fighting him. After a number of hits, he'll go down and victory is yours. So do we get anything for completing every mission in the game? I'm going to end it all. Honestly, I love Sonic and the Black Knight. Its style is great, the music is some of the best in the series. Seeing all these Sonic characters running around in armor and wielding swords just scratches this weird itch in my brain, and I believe Sonic himself is written phenomenally. It's just that with gameplay this unresponsive and janky, I'd only see it as something to play, to experience the story, then move on. Don't do what I did. Do not waste this gift I have given you.
Someday